I grew up playing the basketball with the boys, so like it's always been physical and feisty, and like that's what it is, and you got to find a way to hold your own.
Is Caitlin Clark is going to be traded soon. And if you follow the rabbit hole, it all sounds real. It all sounds on purpose. And it all makes sense. Caitlin Clark to LA Sparks.
Just 2 minutes ago, the unthinkable occurred. Fans are stunned and teammates are heartbroken by the sudden. The biggest star in the WNBA has resigned. Rumors are circulating in the dark. Was there a violent altercation? With representatives of the league, a horrible wound concealed, or a controversy that is too dangerous to talk about in public? The cameras caught their agony when Sophie Cunningham's voice broke and Lexie Hull's eyes blazed with tears. What reality can cause Clark to turn away? The arena becomes colder and the stillness is more severe. Everything will be rocked by the answers. The mysteries around Caitlin Clark. Caitlin is at the center of the WNBA's most confusing storm. Up until a few days ago, Clark, the rookie sensation who completely transformed the league, was leading her club in assists. In addition to being a dominant player, she scored points and even made headlines every night. She wasn't strained or injured. She was the catalyst for a whole new generation of fans, and she wasn't missing practices either. She packed arenas and raised television ratings, yet she disappeared in an instant. There was only stillness, neither a warning nor an explanation. The shock spread like wildfire, and theories quickly proliferated. 30 minutes. The term load management, which is commonly used to conceal rest or minor injuries, was mentioned in murmurs by some attendees of the game, while others hinted of unclear disciplinary grounds, but the components weren't compatible. Clark hadn't disregarded colleagues or violated any rules. In reality, she was performing beautifully on and off the court, so her departure felt more like an erasure rather than a benching. Those watching felt that something deeper was happening. Then came the whispers from behind closed doors. Clark and several senior officials, according to individuals with knowledge of internal league discussions. Points weren't the only. Her voice is the reason for her rapid rise, and interviews that were done following the game turned into news articles. Videos of her candid remarks went viral on social media. The unspoken guideline of fitting in was not being adhered to by. She was standing out, and not everyone at the top appeared to enjoy it. One rumor set the whole thing off. Specifically, in a private meeting, Clark reportedly questioned league marketing strategies and accused them of being tone deaf. She didn't hold back and severed off contact with the people she thought supported her. She also refused to bow to authority. Some in attendance claimed that because she spoke clearly, the encounter went poorly and that her court time began to shrink. Within 48 hours. Within 72 hours, she was completely benched. The situation that followed was much worse. No clear statements. No press conferences or interviews. One of the league's brightest stars became a ghost as. Despite the fact that someone had pulled a switch, her fans refused to let her go. Within hours, hashtags like #WhereasCaitlin began to gain popularity. Demands for transparency were heard on TikTok, and the comment sections are filled with outrage. Thousands of loyal followers demanded the truth on Instagram, and ex-NBA players joined the chorus, describing the league's handling of Clark as questionable, intentional, and even damaging to the integrity of the game. Suspicion grew with each unanswered question, and the WNBA's silence exacerbated the chaos. Defiance has replaced confusion. Silence is no longer the only problem, it has to do with silence. As time passes, a league that is already struggling is further burdened by the growing mystery surrounding Caitlin Clark. Controlling the narrative. The WNBA isn't just fighting an issue for the first time, it's fighting the fans who won't turn away. When Sophie Cunningham starts the fire, one question remains unsolved. Will the WNBA survive when silence encourages disobedience? Watch alert. Sophie started the fire. Cunningham. After Caitlin Clark vanished from the public eye, there was an uncomfortable silence. But when Sophie Cunningham broke the silence, everything changed, and reporters kept scrambling for nuggets of information. League inboxes were overflowing with fan outrage, but the WNBA's management. Sophie was silent for a while before speaking. She didn't tiptoe or use words that were. It happened during what should have been a standard post-game interview. She went to the burned ground. Sophie made a joke that went viral in the sports world instead of employing polite cliches and well-practiced sound bites. You don't overlook your brightest star unless you're terrified of her power. The room's atmosphere froze as soon as. Reporters leaned forward in shock as she concluded her remarks, and the footage went viral on social media before the league's public. It was all over the place in a matter of hours. The relations office could draft a single response. Podcasts. Fans reprised it like an anthem on Instagram, TikTok, and highlight channels. Sophie wasn't finished. However, what could have been an impulsive reaction became a relentless campaign. She even accused On her show, she claimed that Clark's benching was purely political in nature and had little to do with basketball. Sophie claimed that the league was more concerned with control than progress, more concerned with preserving its dominance than paying tribute to the talent that kept the league afloat. She said aloud what many had whispered in private, going farther than most athletes would have dared. The purpose of Clark's punishment was to act as a warning to athletes about the consequences of speaking too loudly or shining too brilliantly. Sophie repeated her remarks on live broadcasts during team meetings, cutting through the silence like a razor. She refused to make concessions since she didn't consider losing minutes or being fined to be the real threat. She wasn't afraid of the consequences because it was enabling the league to covertly get rid of one of the most important athletes of the generation. Her fearlessness spread like wildfire, and the supporters responded. With thousands of voices in support, hashtags changed from anger to action. Stand with Sophie and Free Clark began to trend side by side. What had started out as a single message had developed into a movement that the league could not ignore. Fans applauded Sophie as well as Clark, praising her for being the only athlete willing to sacrifice everything on the line to reveal what they perceived to be injustice. The WNBA was unprepared for this spark, and it spread faster than anyone could put an end to it. The integrity of a complete league was no longer at risk due to the disappearance of a single player. Was at risk. Sophie Cunningham had opened this door, despite the WNBA's determination to keep it locked. There were truths behind it that may alter how the game played out. What began as Caitlyn's the league's ability to continue is now impacted by absence, but what explosive reality is hidden by the quiet of Lexie Hull. Keep watching. Lexie Hull breaks the silence. The league's defenses had. Sophie Cunningham's fire had already rattled the area, but the storm got worse the very following day. Lexie Hull entered the fight with a different kind of strength. She didn't write a long statement. She didn't rely on prepared lines or settle for a cozy podcast. Instead, following rehearsal, she went straight into the press room, looked directly into the cameras, and made a single, powerful statement. Speech. If they can treat Caitlin Clark this way, what do you think they'll do to the rest of us? The room became chilly. Reporters stopped taking notes. The video went viral outside only a few minutes. There was no gloss, no spin, just the plain reality of women's basketball, making background players shift nervously. WNBA supporters were no longer the only. It covered every facet of the sports industry. The same startling question is posed by both ESPN anchors and YouTube commentators. What is happening at the WNBA behind closed doors? Lexie didn't stop there. She sent Caitlin a striking black and white photo of herself. Clark a few hours later. The caption contained only the word loyalty, which sparked a flurry of speculation. Was she yelling treachery in the locker room? Was the target management? Was it a cautionary tale for colleagues who were forced to remain silent? The timing could hardly be ignored, even though nobody was confident. And the suspense was only increased by the ambiguity. Behind-the-scenes reports began to appear. Insiders claim that Lexie has been one of the team's most outspoken members since the dispute began. According to one account, she confronted the coaching staff directly and demanding to know why the only player who consistently sold. The story claims that her teammates backed her when she was abruptly benched from full arenas. What had started off as rumors of conflict quickly made headlines in the locker room, portraying a club that had lost unity as a result of concealment. Not just her own squad, either. Lexie hinted that players from multiple teams had been quietly voicing their worries and dissatisfaction with the way the Clark case was being handled away from league officials and cameras. There was real pressure to keep silent, but there was also a growing determination to take full advantage of the situation. Sources claim that Lexie was organizing a group of younger athletes who were tired of being told to play, smile and remain silent as their voices were muffled. These athletes felt constrained by antiquated politics. Then came the enigmatic, emotive, and inevitable tweets. Prior to their removal, one in particular sent shockwaves. If you want to build your legacy, stop stifling the individuals who do it. Wish to leave one. Fans took screenshots of it right away. It showed up on fan forums, TikTok changes, and Reddit discussions in a few hours. Some believed that WNBA executives were the target of the statement. Some argued that it was directed at media figures who were accused of downplaying the incident. But one thing bound them all together. Lexie wasn't just reacting to what had happened, she was fighting the very act of silence. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull were now on the front line together, two players who are ready to expose secrets that others have kept hidden, endangering everything. As a result of their disobedience, the league was caught up in both a controversy and a full-fledged uprising. To what degree will the disobedience? Did Sophie Cunningham and Lexie'S contribute to the WNBA's downfall or rebirth? The revolution is imminent, so hold on tight. The supporters turn the tide. When Sophie Cunningham and Lexie'S faced off, it felt like a match had been struck in a room full of gasoline. Shattered the silence. Instead of just reacting, fans erupted. What began as outrage quickly turned into an internet rebellion that was so loud and persistent that the WNBA could no longer pretend not to hear it. Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and TikTok all lit up at the same time, and a ton of hashtags emerged. On schedules. Because they came straight from the fans who frequently streamed, #FreeCaitlin, #JusticeForClark. Games, bought jerseys, and crowded arenas all had more weight than the league's official statements. In a matter of hours, WNBA accounts were inundated with angry comments that demanded explanations. Whether it was for a sponsorship, a charity event, or a highlight. Sports forums, which are frequently vibrant with conversations about strategies and data, evolved into places of distrust and irritation. However, hashtags weren't the end of the uprising. Fans turned themselves into investigators, who started looking through game film, removing freeze frames, establishing timelines and examining minutes played to uncover a story the league would not go into further detail about. Clark was shoved in some clips on drives to the basket, and her body was violently smacked without the authorities whistling. Some drew attention to the perplexing drop in her minutes even though she was still achieving remarkable achievements. Something disconcerting was seen when comparing them side by side. Clark's reportage on the WNBA's own social media platforms had millions of people watched TikTok as the results went viral, gradually declining as more superstars were honored. Movies that mixed snippets of missed foul calls. Reddit debates carefully detailed her playing time. The WNBA was accused by fans of deliberately keeping Clark out of the spotlight, and screenshots of the league's official statements from both before and after the incident went viral. The player who was benched was it had become into a more important public trial of the league's legitimacy. In addition, the supporters were shouting instead of whispering. One well-liked post asked, "Why keep the star that let us hear a secret? What would happen to the future of the game if Caitlin Clark could be removed?" The questions got louder with every post, retweet, and share. The online rebellion was out of control. It was suddenly the focal point of a movement that throbbed through sports culture and was too strong for the league to contain. But what did the league unleash when Sophie and Lexie drew their line in the sand, rebellion or revolution? Stay tuned as more riddles emerge. It was a backfiring remark. The league said nothing for nearly 2 days. Players were openly criticizing management, the cries on the internet grew louder, and Caitlin Clark was encircled by an unrelenting storm. The moment that should have eased emotions rather made them worse when the WNBA broke its silence. A formal statement appeared via the league's official channels. The tone was businesslike, clinical, and strangely detached from reality. There was no mention of Caitlin Clark, the growing controversy Instead of acknowledging the claims of player silence, it reduced everything to a boring explanation. A deliberate rotation decision and an appeal for people to